Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing the build of the Estes BOSS. Now this is actually, fingers crossed, going to be the last video that I need in order to finish up the assembly parts of the construction. After that, it will be finishing, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but anyway, there's not a whole lot left to do. In the last video, so we got all these little circular parts on. That was the only real construction we needed to do with this. The glue has set on these centering rings, so these are ready to attach. And I did take the time to finish processing, so getting all the burrs, mostly anyway, off of the little decorative bits here. So we only really have a couple things to do. Now, the larger body segment is going to go just over top of the centering rings like so. This is actually a pretty loose fit for whatever reason. The glue ought to make that better, but this really shouldn't be an issue. Always good to test fit though, and I do want to have it just just past the edge here, and I need to have this line in line with one of the middle line here, basically, of the design that I've drawn down here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to put, now the instructions say to put glue interior of this about an inch. I'm not going to measure that because I rarely do. It's not that big of a deal. You'll probably be able to, there we go, eyeball it just about right. All you really need to do is make sure that you don't get it beyond where this second centering line is. And honestly, I don't know how much good this one's going to do anyway, because the first bit of glue I'm going to put inside of this is probably going to get smeared by a little more glue, by the first centering ring and pushed back basically to where I want things to end up anyway. This comes back to that idea that you should really, if you want good glue adhesion, you should probably apply the glue in 2 layers. I'm not really going to bother with that. The second ring here I'm going to put just interior, really as close to the edge as I can get it, and I'm not going to bother with the dowel for that. Alright, so in it goes. And yeah, it's still pretty loose fit, but it's not really going anywhere, fortunately. Alright, so I'm checking my alignment here. I want to make sure that this line and this line are lined up. So the little circle should be a quarter of the way around this tube. So just make sure those lines are right. I'm going to check both sides. That looks pretty good. Alright. I'm going to let that sit for a moment. And then the remainder of the build here is just attaching these little things. So there are a bunch, so this will take a little bit of time, but I'm not really going to spend much time attaching any given one of them. They're purely decorative, so they're not aerodynamically important. I mean, I guess a little bit. They stick into the airstream a little bit, but not much. And all I need to make sure, and I have them pointed the wrong way, they should be going this way so that this part right here is going to butt up against the centering ring. So that being said, the glue, I'm not going to bother with 2 layers of glue with this, again, because hopefully it doesn't really ever bear much load of any sort, but I'm going to put a little bit on the front as well, because it should touch the centering ring ahead. Now, the glue there is not set at the moment, so maybe you'd want to let this dry a little bit before you start doing this in case you mess up the alignment there, but I'm not terribly worried about that. The glue's probably set well enough. Anyway, the 12 lines that we've drawn here, that's what you're going to use to align. So I'm just going to pop it on there and then take a little peek and make sure that it is basically aligned. That looks pretty good. And I do want it all the way front. It does seem to be all the way front. And I do want to smear that glue out in case there are any obvious globs because as soon as I start getting a whole bunch of these on there, it's going to be really hard for me to get in there with my fingers. So this is going to be a little repetitive. That's alright. There are actually some other things to discuss while I'm doing the repetitive job anyway. So I was thinking about the finishing process coming up, which usually takes me approximately forever to do, especially compared to how long it takes to build the rocket. Usually, it takes me a couple weeks to get through all the finishing steps. And that would be putting on a coat of wood fill to fill in any grain in the balsa, and then I'm trying to go light on the glue, by the way, so I don't have to worry too much about any smears coming out. That seems to be working so far. In any event, in looking at what's available here, and what needs to be done and what doesn't. Honestly, I don't know that I'm going to spend very much time working on the finish at all, because, first of all, it's something I would rather avoid if at all possible. I honestly, I do it because if you don't do it, the fins, just straight up balsa fins, if you have them, they're gonna not look great. The grain is usually pretty obvious if you do nothing about it other than sand it while it's still in the sheet of balsa. It generally looks not great. So I generally do it if I have to, solely for that reason. But the thing about this one is things a little bit. There's only really one fin that would benefit from. Sorry, the alignment here was not quite right. Let's try that again. There we go. Now it's better. Anyway, the alignment, not the alignment, there's only one fin that would really benefit, and that's this one right here. The other ones, they're little standoff bits right here, and the one underneath the circular fin. Yeah, it would be nice to get to them, but it's going to be really hard to sand them anyway. Just because they're fairly small, so it's probably not anywhere near as noticeable. So that's just kind of a laziness thing on my behalf. But it's also going to be fairly difficult to even get in there to do a decent job. I don't really want to be messing with the tube, so if I get in here, I don't really want to get the tube all that much. Although, to be honest, the spiral in this tube isn't particularly good, so that should probably be filled as well. Some of these lines are getting a little hard to see. Fortunately, you are just spacing these evenly, so the precision here is probably not all that terribly important, just so long as you're doing it at regular intervals and you don't miss out and have a giant gap where you probably should have put some and you counted wrong or whatever, or you lost some, who knows. Anyway, the top has this lamination of cardstock on it, and that I'm definitely not going to do anything with, because whatever I do with it, it's probably going to make it look worse than it already is. So, I'm kind of at a position where I'm not sure I would reap any real benefits from doing any finishing. Now, I have some extraneous glue in here, and I really can't get my fingers in anymore, so I'm going to use a piece of balsa here just to kind of smooth out. It fits in nicely, and I can mop up any of the little excess glue bits since I can't get my fingers in there anymore. That's just the back end of my dowel, although I'm only going to be able to do that a couple times before I get enough glue on there, so it's not going to work. So pretty much any bit of balsa scrap you have, you could, from this kit especially, you could get in there. It's not, the gap is big enough. It's small. It's too small for my fingers, but it's reasonably large, at least compared to the width of the balsa that you're working with in this particular kit. it would also be a wise idea here to just be careful with the glue on your fingers, because I don't really want to have to do much work with the fins themselves here, or the tubes, sorry, the tubes themselves here, so I don't want to get any glue on it that I'd have to deal with. I'm concerned here that I haven't, well, that should be alright. I'm running low on little bits, and I feel like, maybe I put one in a place I shouldn't, given that I'm like halfway around and I've only got 4 left. Well, I got 5 with this one. It's fine. I'm sure it'll be good. It just feels like I'm running low. So I think I will do a little bit of finishing work just because it's good practice. It shouldn't really be all that much, because I'm just going to really be working on the one fin that is point facing up right now. The rest of it, I'm going to look at filling the tube, the spiral in the tube, in a couple places. That I might just do with sanding sealer rather than wood fill. Okay, only a couple more left here. And this is certainly repetitive and probably didn't require me to actually do it all on camera, but whatever. There were other things to discuss. Anyway, so I think the conclusion as I'm talking through this is I'm going to do a job of preparing all this stuff, but I may not do a particularly good job setting up the finishing process. These bits, at least, the good news is I don't need to really do anything else. Ooh, that's some extra glue there, isn't it? I'm not gonna try to put fillets around this stuff. That would just make a mess and probably wouldn't really do anything worthwhile anyway, because the fillets are generally to strengthen things or to build the aerodynamics, and there's not going to be a whole lot of wind moving down in here, hopefully. I mean, if it is, it's an eddy anyway, so it's not gonna, putting fillets in isn't going to make much of a difference here. Probably not necessary. Alright, last one. There we go. And looking at this too, the part where all these are is going to be painted black, and the rest of this is going to be painted white. So the nice thing about that too is the construction, or the construction was definitely time consuming, but this is the part that I like. The painting is the part that I'm not particularly good at and don't really enjoy. It's not quite centered. There we go. So the painting hopefully should be pretty easy, except for the fact that masking this should be pretty straightforward, except that there's the launch lug. So that'll be minorly irritating. Alright, so that's it for construction. I'm gonna just do a spot check here, look for any obvious nasty glue spots. I mean, it's not perfect, but overall it's not that offensive, and there are a couple spots here. Probably I'm just gonna use the dowel here to kind of scratch a little bit of glue off if it's set too much, or just kind of brush things out so that it appears a little smoother, or at least push it out so I can clean it up with my finger. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'm going to leave it upside down like this to dry for a little bit, and then it will be time to finish. How exciting. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.